Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha. Every week that passes by, there is always something happening that has impact and has serious implications for our life and living. Last week we talked about coronavirus and how it has become a global pandemic, or it has been named as such. Now, if you have heard about the Gaia Principle, it teaches us something, that we humans are parasites on the planet Earth and we are the actual virus. And what happens is that when we have a virus in our body, our temperature goes up. The temperature goes up not because because the virus causes the temperature increase, but the body responds by increasing the temperature so that the virus dies. And that's what it is important, is that in this world right now, animals are not a virus on the planet Earth because they live within the confines of natural laws. We humans are trying to control and dominate the nature, and that's how the climate change and the geographical uthal-puthal that happens is because of that. Nature has its own way. Mother Earth, Mother Nature has its own way to purify and take care of her own self. So far as we know, Earth is the only planet that has living beings like us, so far as we know. Thus, it is very important to approach this entire conversation on coronavirus as to how it happened. It happened in a lab. Something went wrong. Today, as we know, there are approximately 100 million Chinese who have been quarantined. And even in Nassau County in Long Island, there were some people in preventive custody, so to say, to make sure that they are not home to coronavirus. It has assumed significant proportion. Congress is going to approve $8.5 billion to face this crisis, and everything is going on in a big way. To discuss this matter, and we had a very wonderful opportunity of Mr. Trump visiting India. We will talk about that as well. And the presidential election, which has such important implications for all us Indians and the country as a whole. To discuss all these matters, I have great privilege in welcoming Dr. Deepak Nandi, entrepreneur and psychiatrist, who has been on our show earlier on, and he's very vocal, and it is very important to express yourself, and Dr. Nandi does that as well as I have known anybody else to do that. So welcome again.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you.
And what I wanted to start with, 2 weeks ago when we met, we did talk about coronavirus, and it has changed. It has become a much bigger event. But the good part is that lesser number of people are dying now because maybe prognosis is faster. Maybe people are paying more attention to the care part of it, as the saying goes. And I always say this is the perfect time for us Indians to introduce the concept of namaste, greetings, which Japanese do, martial arts fighters do, and this is part of our culture. It's time to introduce that in the global way. Dr. Nandi, your thoughts on this?
Correct. That's why we had the big event called Namaste Trump. Modi incorporated that. But coming back to the coronavirus, right now it is a pandemic all over the world. It is cities have been closed. We have seen the cities of Hong Kong, Seoul, northern part of Japan. Now we have emergency in San Francisco. We have an emergency in Singapore. And we are seeing cities all over, northern Milan in Italy, a city in Greece. So it is happening all over the place. And I dare say the stock market has come down over 3,500 points in the last couple of days. And there is definitely an effect all over the world. You're correct, the disease is not that lethal. 80 people have died over, but a whole lot of people have got infected, and one has to become super careful, that is by washing hands, avoiding crowded places, staying away from people who are infected, and quarantining those people.
No, it is what is important here is that to take care of things. There are a lot of people are prescribing lots of theories. Don't shake hands, wash your hands, and drink a lot of water, take warm water, and stay away from unnecessary things, take your medications properly, and variety of stuff. But is there something that one can, as an individual, must do to ensure that you are not afflicted by this? Because this particular virus, because of China, it has a great economic, social, and political implication. It's already having that. As Dr. Nandi pointed out, that the stock market has tanked. We all know that. And it is tanking. I'm saying that every disaster is an opportunity. This is the time for us as human beings, supposedly with superior thinking capacity, to reflect as to why this is happening. Is it because we were creating bio-warfare mechanisms? Or are we trying to, master various parts of the, nature that we are trying to generate? What was the need? What was happening in Wuhan research lab? And what could have gone wrong? I mean, we are trying to do speculation because China, being the world's largest supply chain manager, if China is not able to supply items, you are going to see a massive correction happening, massive rundown happening, because many goods and services and supplies will get impacted. Even Apple announced that their products will hit the market later. So you are looking at a very significant economic impact. Market has tanked. This creates a buying opportunity, as the saying goes, buy low, sell high. So those who can, it's a buying opportunity for them. The market is not, the coronavirus is not going to be there forever. Once the temperatures go up, chances are that this particular virus will also go down. So the question is that how do we handle the fear, psychosis that is raging the world right now?
Well, fear is the right word and panic is the wrong word. So we need to make sure we do not panic, but be appropriately fear. Only remember, the paranoid survives. So we need to be proactive in terms of what we need to do for ourselves. The most important thing that we can do for ourselves is to strengthen our immunity system. Because if your immunity system is strong, remember only 4% of the people who got infected at max, it is more like 2.8% who's died because of the disease. So it will depend upon your immunity system, and the immunity system can be taken care of best by making sure you have adequate nutrition, that you have adequate light, that you practice meditation, you practice exercise, and whatever chronic disease or whatever disease you have, be diabetes or hypertension or whatever disease you have, respiratory illness, you make sure that is in remission, that is in total remission. That is, you go to the doctor and make sure that your chronic disease or whatever thing that is happening with your body is in total control, is under total control. That is the best way to prevent in a biological way to make sure. But at the same time, I think we have to make sure that we are psychologically fit to deal with this. Being psychologically fit means one is optimistic, one is hopeful, one uses a lot of prayer, and social means one gets to converse with other people, do not isolate yourself, talk on the phone, get on the internet, check out what is happening, because everything is extremely dynamic now. The market swung from minus 1,200 points to minus 400 points throughout the day. But one cannot react to it. One cannot react to by selling their stocks or doing. And is it a good opportunity to buy? I do not know, because if the disease gets worse, if the disease spreads in the community, then all the buildings will be closed, mass transportation will be closed, and trust me, the market will go down a lot more.
Yes, I mean, market will go down a lot more, and that's where the important is. Very good suggestion that stay connected, be aware of your surroundings as to what's happening around. There is a lot of concern. I mean, in Iran, the deputy prime minister is perhaps gone, right?
Yeah.
He was affected by coronavirus and he's gone. So it is affecting, it is a very important education for us. So the question is, how do we respond? What do we learn from this? coronavirus has no religion written on it. It cut across every single barrier of humanity. It is cutting across people. People who with power are gone. Men, women, children, they're all affected. And this is where we have to understand that this is not God's act. It's a human act. And this is where the importance of learning comes from, that this has no religion written on it. Coronavirus was not propagated by X, Y, or Z faith to hurt somebody else. It's part of the natural phenomenon, man-made. And that's what is important to do that. So far as the stock market tanking and buying is concerned, one thing which I will definitely say as, as a former portfolio manager, I would say that if your strategy has not changed, but unless and until some particular portfolio, if something is going to be affected very seriously, then think about it. Otherwise, do not worry. If you can buy, buy. If you cannot, then leave it as it is. That is the humble suggestion I can give to you. But there is also a very important point. People always say, reduce your pain to get pleasure. So if you can handle the loss and if you can't take the uncertainty, walk away, fully aware. And that awareness is the important part. But this has a very important social and political impact as well. As we know now that in this country, because of the election and campaign season, blame are being heard. And there is a new whistleblower came out who said that the people who were going to receive the coronavirus people who came from China in separate flights, they were unprepared. Now, this is what I mean to say, learning time. When you are in a desperate time, you are taking desperate measures, you can't be 100% ready. You have to accept that humans are deficient or may not be ready in every sense of the term. Then only I will go to fight or attend to a crisis. If there are 300 people coming in a plane, not all attendees to them have to be 100% ready. How do you see that politicians, it's a very curious thing that I see on the TV when they say, politicians say, he's politicizing the matter. But that's politics, right? What is the learning that we can tell politicians not to do?
Yeah, so the Democratic Party has leveraged the coronavirus thing to a point where they basically blames President Trump that he fired the pandemic specialist, as if there is this one specialist that existed 2 years back, and he was not prepared for this, having fired this pandemic specialist, not knowing that there is a million of those hanging out there, and he is able to get in one of them right away. In fact, on Tuesday evening when President Trump gave the speech, we had Mr. Fauci standing next to him and calming the people down. He was the guy who identified HIV virus, AIDS virus, Anthony Fauci.
Right.
So this is all nuisance, but it is just to create panic. Then they talked about how the CDC was deprived of funds, which is not true again because the CDC got more money. So both parties will try to take advantage of the situation, but the country is divided and people knows how to read it and not react to that, hopefully. But the market reacting is worrisome. That means things are happening. In a free economy, which is the beauty of the United States, when a market reacts, it is truly reflective of whatever is happening out there. And they have more information than the public has, the general public has. They have more information. And for Goldman Sachs to cancel their conference, which was scheduled for Monday, for things like that, I worry. And the thing that worries me is if even one person reports in New York City that he has the disease and he was out in the community, then it becomes that the disease was spread in the community. And once that happened, we have seen cities like Seoul getting closed within 4 days' time. So that might happen. I mean, all the schools, the institution, the transportation, community transportation gets closed, that will immediately have an effect on the economy as such. And already, I mean, everybody's talking about that this year, there will be no growth in the profit. That has been already announced. that there will be no growth in the profit. I mean,
yeah, it is very likely, because what is going to happen is, because of the slowdown, as to use the soccer analogy, you need one goal to win the match. But if you're down by 2, you have to score 3. So the downturn in the market that has happened, it will have to have bounce of many times to recover the losses. However, what is important here is to learn from this incident, the opportunity that, economy will be hurt. The stock market is a true reflection of the events around. So think about it like this: airline services. I cancel my travel plans because I do not know. 5 hours sitting on a plane, or 8 or 9 hours of sitting in the plane, I do not know who has traveled where and what has happened. You expose yourself. So it's a non-essential thing. You change. Hotel industry. Even massage parlors will be getting affected, because most of the people who do travel a lot, they come back and they go for a massage to relax. I'm giving you the example of massage parlors for the simple example, even the tiniest of entities could get affected. And that's what is important here, to know that how a human act can have such a cascading effect on things around us. Stay tuned. We will be back to talk about Mr. Trump's visit to India and the related events. Good coverage, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's fun to be conversing on these matters, yeah. Huh. Ready? No. With that, fear and opportunity exists for all, everything that we are talking about. Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome back. We will now revert to a very significant event from my point of view, frankly speaking. Mr. Trump's visit to India. It was one of those most fascinating events that the media in India and the United States covered. The event by itself was gigantic, in the sense that Mr. Trump traveled to India on a standalone basis, one visit to one country. Normally, presidents go on these long trips, they combine with several visits around. This was an exclusive visit of 19 hours of the flight to spend 36 and 40 hours in India to establish a democratic relationships between the two countries, which has been very strong for the last several years. And every president, from Obama to Bush, everybody began to pay attention to India, because India was becoming a key player just because of the size of the population. The burgeoning middle class, the demographic dividend of the youth, and the fact that India's liberalization began to bear fruit under Prime Minister Modi. He took certain gigantic steps to decentralize the economy, taken some bold steps, unpleasant steps, which was not designed to win a Miss Congeniality award, so to say. So Mr. Trump's visit to India was dynamic from that point of view. People have spoken about it. People have, oppositions have said, like Bernie Sanders said, that he went to India but did not talk about the climate change with Modi. And I wondered, United States is already out of the climate accord. India is in climate accord. So why will they talk about climate change? Why does Trump have to talk to Modi about climate change? Didn't make sense to me at all. But politics being what it is, how do you assess President visit to India and the massive welcome he got and the response of Indians to Trump, and Trump's acknowledgement of that response played a pretty sensitive role? Because remember, when Bill Clinton went to India, he went towards the end of his term where everything was over. He was a lame duck president, played holy, danced around, came back. It was rated as a breakthrough. But this is much before his election, in his end of the term, but a remarkably powerful visit.
Absolutely correct. Trump's visit is a big jumpstart to the Indian economy. And India won huge on this. And I will happily elicit the things that India won because of this. President Trump was in 36 hours on February 24th and 25th, visited the Sabarmati place in Ahmedabad, paid his respect into Mahatma Gandhi's place, and went to the Motera Stadium with 125,000 people capacity welcoming him. All in all, Mr. Modi and Trump hugged over 20 times, and respectfully, the body language talked about the deep respect they have for each other. India won so many points. India, all the sanctions that has been imposed in all over the world for the rest of the countries were lifted for India in the terms of trade with Iran. That means India will be able to procure oil and gas from Iran and pay them back in rupees and pay them back in Indian commodities that India exports, like rice, like agricultural products, things like Iran needs. One huge gain for India. This will mean less depletion of the foreign currency for India. Trump made this exclusive waiver for India in this. Number two, 30 top-notch helicopters worth $3 billion will be given to India so that India's defense is absolutely state-of-the-art and replenished. Number four, the Quad. The Quad was established. That is, India, Australia, Korea, and Japan together will now have a way to make sure that China cannot capture the South Pacific, cannot capture the South China Sea, and these four countries together will, and the United States, help to form this Quad. So in terms of resistance against China. The other thing that, number five, what Mr. Trump did was, he, in his speech, talked about radical Islam that no other president had the guts to talk about. Right. And standing in the land of India, he basically warned Pakistan to be totally aware that both India and United States will together make sure that radical Islam is totally demolished from the face of the earth. So these were some of the salient features which helped. The thing that did not work out is the trade, the tariff. India wanted more tariff, USA wanted more cut in the tariff, which Prime Minister Modi did not agree on. So that will not happen, and that will be discussed on a later date. But see how, because of the brilliance of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and because of the warmth of President Trump, and he had won him based on charm, that he was able to get all these things from the United States, which will help the Indian economy tremendously. Because now we will have an India where we will be not depleting the foreign currency. And the last point that even Prime Minister Modi brought up, which Trump at least listened to and said, I'm going to think about it, is that all the H-1 visas, the 60 to 70,000 H-1 visas that come to the United States, they pay into the Social Security contribution, they pay into their, and 6-7 years down the road, they all go back. A lot of them go back, the J-1 visas go back, and that money is never earned back by those guys when they retire. So they are contributing to the Social Security. Sure. And so, and that is not being accounted for. Prime Minister Modi brought it up. President Trump listened. He became aware for it for the first time, and there will be this will be accounted for in the trade deficit accounting that India has with USA.
And that you very well articulated all the achievements and the gains that both countries had with each other. And perhaps the most important thing here is the relationship part, because everything happens because of respect that you give to each other. So in my tweet prior to Trump's visit, I had mentioned that all that matters is do not sermonize India, and he did not. I don't say that he listened to me, but the point is that the man is aware of the ground conditions. India doesn't like being sermonized. Nobody likes to be sermonized. We especially. We don't want to be sermonized by others, what you should do or what you shouldn't do. Second thing was respect, attending to India's energy needs and attending to defense needs and manufacturing and trade. As you are rightly saying, Deepak, that trade will get resolved. I think both the people are very, very committed to that. And both of the countries need each other to export or perish. So India has to beef up its exporting capacity and manufacturing capacity, and defense tie-ups will lead to significant technology breakthroughs, because in the arrangement that is being talked about, India will have the opportunity to manufacture sophisticated defense equipments, which will lead to Indians becoming more sophisticated in their manufacturing capability. And that's very, very important. However, it is important to also say that Mr. Trump took his family with him, which is what is important to note, that Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, his son-in-law and daughter were with him on this trip. And both of them are key members of his cabinet, confidant, and they were most satisfied with this entire outcome. However, the global media also talked about the violence that happened in Delhi during Trump's visit. Now, this is very important to discuss, because whatever happened in Delhi, the killings, the rioting that happened, they were not a happy reflection on the way the things were. And let's talk about that, frankly speaking, and also as a fear and an opportunity. What I see this as an opportunity is that Muslims in India, the entire thing about CAA has been misplaced. Somebody has played the game. It was coincided with Mr. Trump's visit so that it looks bad, so that it puts Mr. Modi on the defensive in terms of the actions plan. So it is very interesting when you try to put two and two together, then you notice that, I say this with total sadness, that when you see the speeches of Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Vadra, of all the people, Wasim Pathan, the OIC brother, who were talking about violence, that was totally wrong. Somewhere along the line, somebody picked up the thread. Whether it is inspired or conspired by somebody else, I do not know that. So I can't say with finality. But there was definitely violence, and it has, in my opinion, permanently fractured the growing relationship between the Hindus and the Muslims, because the entire opposition to CAA is not fact-based, not truth-based.
Again, absolutely. It was very disheartening to know that Chief Minister Kejriwal totally vanished during this time, and he leveraged, his aspiration is to get the Delhi police totally under the control of the Delhi administration and not keep it under the control of Union Home Ministry.
Right.
So because he has a bite about that, what he did was he vanished and did nothing. And it is so sad that we had a head constable, Ratan Lal, who had to sacrifice his life. We have a deputy commissioner of police who is in the critical district, because they were ordered not to do anything active. So they just resorted to tear gas. And this happened in the northern area of Delhi, in a place called Zafarabad, where there is a huge Muslim community, and the police were not allowed to protect themselves. And the community, properly instigated by the politicians, without their understanding about how they are being taken advantage of, fought with each other, and so many people died because of that. And I feel terribly sad for the Delhi police and terribly angry against the politicians who leveraged this situation with a pre-planned way to take advantage of the Trump visit. But President Trump, he's used to this. He knows this. He sees this, how the Democratic Party does it. And so he could read to it. And he was very appropriate and measured in his comments when he was being questioned. And he said, it is an internal issue. Let your country deal with it. And I'm sure you have competent Prime Minister Modi will know how to deal with it. I'm sure the issue will eventually be taken care of, but you're again right that it would have fractured more the relationship. At the end of the day, it is these politicians who are always continuing to do what the Britishers did. It was Rajendra Prasad, President Rajendra Prasad, who in his essay for the ICS exam wrote, "Divide and rule was the secret sauce for the Britishers to rule India."
And that's very important. You know, the Congress party somewhere along the line has mastered and become more vicious in creating the divide in the Hindu community through its various actions. And coming to that part which you said, Mr. Trump really respectfully attended to India's concerns. And in the press conference, he totally said that Prime Minister Modi is quite competent to handle Kashmir. CA is internal matter, no comment on that. And he was most, warm in recognizing that there are things which are India's internal matter and they need to be dealt with India's internal affairs, and it's not his place to comment on that, whether it was Kashmir, whether it was CA or anything else. That is the extent what we have to recognize the Prime Minister Modi's effort to build the relationships so that people respect you for what you are and what you are trying to do. Stay tuned, we will be back right after this short break. Hey, we did it all right. Take it. Now we'll talk about the US election. We covered all the three items that we mentioned. No, third one, presidential election, why it is important. And we will bring in the entire Bernie Sanders Pakistani manager, how the whole thing is shaping up. It's virtually shaping up democracy. Democratic Party is taking help of the Islamists, and the Indians are moving towards the Republican Party. And that's what is important. And we will talk about this as a seminal moment, this election to be a seminal moment, because if Trump wins, NRIs are going to be really well accorded in the whole process. There will be much greater reception and relationship with India. Bernie wins or Democratic India relationship will be in trouble, because it will be. And one of the nicest thing that happened with Hillary losing, that Huma Abedin, the Saudi Arabian woman who was the country would have been Islamized.
Oh yeah.
People don't realize. I mean, I'm so personally grateful for Trump winning.
I had won $10,000 that night, November 4, 2016. My wife was like, I don't know, you always bet on the wrong side. I said, that has been the story of my life.
Not on the wrong side, you were on the right side.
Yeah, but it will look intuitively at that moment the wrong side.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back. Today we are also going to talk about the presidential election. It's gathering momentum. It's exciting in its own way. They always are, because they dominate the news cycle, they dominate the dialogue, they dominate our minds. The presidential election is a big thing in the United States, which happens every 4 years. And the campaigns begin in the third year of the president's term. So the question here is, how is it looking and what is happening? Here is what I feel. And I would say this, as I always say, frankly speaking, I visualize that if Mr. Trump were to win the election, it will bode very well for India-US relationships in the future. There will be completely new foundations laid down for the future of both the democracies. It will bode very well for us Indians in the United States, because of the very simple fact that Indians have been vocally supportive of Mr. Trump for two reasons. One is the economy, the way he has handled it, and the second part is his open courage and determination to handle terrorism, for which we Indians have suffered back home, and we all know where it comes from. What happens in the democratic field? It is amazing. It is truly amazing for me that 4 people in the Democratic Party who are leaders, Miss Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, former Vice President, and now Michael Bloomberg, they're all 75 plus. So when they assume power, if they were to win, they will be all 77, 78. And that makes a very interesting situation, in my opinion, that their vice presidential selection will determine whether they have any chance or not against Trump. The reason is very simple. You remember John McCain. John McCain had a fair chance of beating President Obama, candidate Obama at that time. In my opinion, he lost out because he chose a person, no comment on the person as such, but relatively unknown lady governor from Alaska. And she was just not a match for the scenario, because people did talk about the fact that John McCain is 72 years of age, he's a war veteran, there is a clear chance of him losing his life, and the fact that you will see a young lady firebrand to become the president, people just didn't accept that. So in this situation, my personal feeling is that all the 475 plus people from Democratic Party, they should retire gracefully, just as L.K. Advani did. And let the young people take over. Then they have a chance. Your thought on that?
I have now tremendous respect for the United States of America. This being the #1 capitalist nation of the earth, where money is considered God, and we call it the almighty dollar. Here we look at a male candidate with $60 billion in his pocket, spending over $500 million just for the primary in the last 35 days, stands #4, questionably #5, with nation polling being reported today, with Bernie Sanders #1, followed by Mr. Biden, followed by Elizabeth Warren, followed by Mr. Buttigieg, and #5 is Michael Bloomberg. So even with all the money in the earth, the American public, even with $150 million just spent in South Carolina, where he is not standing for the election this Saturday, we are seeing the national poll showing total disrespect for money. This is not a country of deplorables, as Mrs. Hillary Clinton would love to believe. This is a country where people are extremely pragmatic, intelligent, hardworking, and respectfully want to take care of their own destiny by hard work. This is not a nation of freeloaders. This is not a nation where they want free health care, not a nation where they want free education, not a nation where they want free food stamps, not a nation. Yes, the government should be there as a safety net should there be an emergency. And FDR, the greatest Democrat, recognized that and built the social security net so that if a lady becomes a widow who has never worked, who is a housewife, there is a safety net. So immediately taken, social security kicks in, things like that. The concept of safety net, because this is also the nation of kindest people. People are extremely kind. People are compassionate. So they want to take care of that. But they have no respect for people who are freeloaders. Freeloading is not respected in this nation. This is a nation which is pretty much at the center right, and they are not deplorables because they are in the center right. They are proud Americans who build this nation with hard work. They have tremendous respect for immigrants who come in and build hard work. If that was not the case, we would not have 10 CEOs of the biggest and the largest company coming from India. If there was discrimination, we would not have that in this country. It is pure meritocracy.
And that's what is important. You know, like when people like us who came to this country, we did not come to this country to remain poor. Nobody comes to America to remain poor. The fear and the opportunity in this particular discussion is the Democratic Party has gone socialist. And they're all talking about free education, free medical, free education, everything free. Now the question is, it's very important for us to know there's nothing free in this world. This country taught us there is no free lunch. So if there is no free lunch, how can we fool people with the promise to give something? You know, as Paulo Coelho said, it's very easy to promise to give what you don't have or you don't have to give. So that's what is happening in the Democratic side. The desperation to win because of the fact that in democratic system, whether you are Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, or you are a low-income person, one man, one vote, one person, one vote. So the question is, to capture the votes, you can promise whatever. Republican Party doesn't do that. They are a party of economy, their social responsibility. Democratic Party is promising the moon to everybody. But as Deepak definitely correctly pointed out, people are not looking to be freeloaders. People want to come, earn, and this is what I learned in this country when I came in 91. The one thing which I have told my Indian counterpart, the one thing which I learned in this country was the respect and dignity of labor. People, whether you are a bus driver, a street cleaner, I saw a sense of pride in them doing a job, that somebody has to do this job. There was no caste affliction written there. People drive a bus, they become something else tomorrow. And that's what is important, dignity of labor. That's what people are looking for. I remember a movie called Dave, in which a dummy becomes the president and he talks about, you have no idea how happy somebody is when they have a job. And that's what is important, because job is the one which allows you respect and dignity. That's what this country taught us. Not about what you are doing, but do whatever you want to do. This is what the beauty of this country is. And the fear right now, which people like me have, though we come from a democratic socialist country, is that the Americans have no idea what socialism does to you. The things that happened in India was meritocracy goes away. You know, it is showing up in the US education system now. They are trying to abandon that if somebody is a high performer, they are trying to bring the people who are not as good a performer to in some kind of a parity that don't make them feel bad. But that's not the way to do it. You don't carry things to extreme, but what is important here is to introduce the concept of performance, because India needs performance-based culture. This country has prospered because everybody has been a high-class performer. And that performance-based culture reduces the stress on everybody else. Do whatever you are best at. Do whatever you enjoy doing. And that's the bottom line. Now, the opportunity as I see it is, I see more from a Republican win. How do you see this shaping up for us Indians? Because Bernie Sanders' campaign manager is a Pakistani. I'm sorry to say that. I'm sorry to say that he's a Pakistani doing that. But what is sad is that Bernie Sanders' campaign has decidedly become anti-India. He's trying to sermonize India about human rights violations. What is important to bear in mind that India is one of the largest democracies in the world. The chaotic nature of Indian democracy is that people who have freedom of speech, they don't respect that. They abuse it.
Yeah, most NRIs who have come to the United States of America has come because they have excelled in the field in India, which allowed them to come over here, which gave them the ambition to come over here. Now, NRIs by nature want to take advantage of the opportunities in this nation. Imagine the United States has been a nation where 80% of the Nobel Prizes in science, physics, chemistry, medicine has been won by the United States for the last 40 years. And out of those 80%, almost 80% of them were immigrants.
Right.
So it is the same immigrants. I can name you 10 Indian guys right now who came to this country, starting from Hargobind Khurana and ending with Mr. Banerjee, who excelled in this country and was able to get the Nobel Prize. My question is, why they were not able to win the Nobel Prize while they were in India? Or given the fact that if they stayed back in India, would they win the Nobel Prize? I mean, they would not have won. I remember we had a professor in biochemistry, Ashok Sharma, at the All India Institute of Medical Science. He said, I and Dr. Khurana applied for the same position. I got it, Dr. Khurana did not get it. I said, that's why you're stuck, and Dr. Khurana is so well recognized throughout the world. So, you know, time and again, it is this nation gives you an environment, a milieu, an opportunity for you to excel.
Right.
And that is the thing that we NRIs are all thriving for.
Right.
That we are, there is a social uplift of our children, our children does better in education, our families get more happier as such. And happiness is defined by education, knowledge, wealth, and everything else, and accomplishment. And this is for the NRIs. Definitely the Republican Party gives them an environment where they can excel. The Democratic Party has sadly said goodbye. As soon as they brought the theme of having everything on freeloading, we cannot look at ourselves in the morning and say, you know what, I'm surviving because I got a handout. I would not be able to survive. I dare say I would not know of many Indians or any Indian that I know of who can look at the mirror and say, you know what, I'm thriving on the freeload that I get. We cannot do that.
No, this is very important because that's something which is critical, is that this country gives you the opportunity for making innovations. Do what you like. Nobody stops you from doing what you want to do. And it's up to you how you define your success. Nobody comes in your way. I remember, because I was a banker in India, for everything you wanted to do, you had to go to the government for approval. In this country, you do something and then nobody stops you from doing that. I'll give you a very interesting example. I was with American Express Bank. One client had a serious problem and we came up with a solution. Reserve Bank had no solution, no approval for products of that kind. But we structured it. I was the structure master at that point in time. We put together a structure which resulted in the client being very happy. We made a lot of money and we solved a problem. Believe it or not, 15 days later, I got a circular from Reserve Bank of India asking for what is our opinion on the very product that we had implemented and done it. Had I been here, we would have done so much more. In India, the socialist practice where the government is the decider on everything that you do inhibits innovation. It inhibits leadership. It inhibits your ability to do what you want to do. You get into line. I'll give you an example. Whether you are in the Indian Administrative Service or Reserve Bank of India or State Bank of India, you know something? There is a pay scale for every, and there is a increment approved. So even if you're performing excellent, your manager cannot give you the increment more than what is prescribed. And that's what is a disincentive. That's what I left. That's why I left Reserve Bank of India. When गधे घोड़े एक समान होते हैं ना, तो काम करने का मजा नहीं आता है. That's what is important. When I joined my company, American Express, you were rewarded for what you performed, your promise and your performance. And that's what mattered. Because performance-based culture is the one which allows individuals to grow. And that's what this country offers us all. And I see that if the socialists, I'm frightened, frankly speaking. I'm frightened of socialist structure coming to this country. This country is not what it is because it has a socialist structure. It is a capitalist structure that has made this country strong, wealthy, and powerful. If that were not true, that's the reason why people want to come to America. People don't want to go to countries where there is restrictions and inhibitions in your ability to do something. As always, time comes to an end for every wonderful discussion. I hope the viewpoints that we have shared makes you think, because everything is an opportunity in life. Every disaster is an opportunity for somebody. So World Trade Center went down, a new one was built. So don't look at disaster as a disaster. Think about what can be learned from there, what can be done about it. And that's what is important for this discussion today. Thank you, Deepak, for being here today.
Thank you very much.
And viewers, have a great weekend and see you again next week.
Thank you.